Hello, Rena.
Hello, Dr. Bach.
Welcome, everyone, to a free association conversation between Rena K and myself, Dr. Bach Ho. We're both organic intelligence coaches. We help people reduce suffering and increase capacity to handle more in life with ease using the protocols of organic intelligence. In these live stream free association conversations, Rena and I try to aim both at people who are completely new to organic intelligence and people who already know its basics. We try to find the balance. Today, our topic is, why is positive reinforcement better? So, uh, positive reinforcement is contrasted against negative reinforcement and the question, and according to organic intelligence, positive reinforcement is better than negative reinforcement. And one foundational question is, what is positive reinforcement and what is negative reinforcement? What are they before we have to have some sense of what they are. So in the standard explanation of positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcement is in organic intelligence is that positive reinforcement refers to feeling better by feeling better immediately. So I'm feeling fine. I go for a walk, I play video games, I talk to someone, I watch TV, I eat a cake, and it's enjoyable. I wasn't in pain before. I just did something that I enjoyed, and that was good. And then organic intelligence would classify that as positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement refers to having to feel worse before feeling better. That's a standard explanation. The way to feel better is to feel worse first, and you may have to feel worse before you feel better. So I feel stressed, I feel discomfort, then I do something, deep breathing, walking, eat something, socialize, do some yoga, and then I feel better. Organic intelligence would classify that as negative reinforcement because I'm feeling because the way to feel better is by feeling worse first. So that's a standard explication of these concepts, positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, within the context of organic intelligence. These concepts are also used in the field of psychology broadly. I'm not making a claim right now about to what extent the organic intelligence understanding is the same as aligns with other understandings that people have when they use these concepts. Um, Here, I would like to get a little more technical. So right now, I feel like I'm addressing people in the know in organic intelligence, especially other OI coaches. I I rarely use the phrase positive reinforcement. And Rena, I'm sorry if I'm just loading too much on you at once, but you can ignore when I hand the baton to you. You can ignore what I said and do whatever you want. Okay. I often, if you watch my YouTube content, if you read my Substack posts, you'll see that I rarely use the phrase positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. And I I'm a little scared of using those terms, in part because I don't feel like I have super clear, precise, strong command over them. Although I have very high standards for myself in what counts as high command. So I typically just use orientation, pleasure, thresholds, auto organization, and I frequently say the only two things that matter are orientation and pleasure. So get rid of all the other concepts. But other concepts are important. One technical thing I want to say about positive and negative reinforcement is I have not heard Steve Hoskinson, hi Steve, the founder of Organic Intelligence, offer a a clear formal definition of these terms, which would consist of a genus and a differentia. The genus being the broader category to which the concepts fall under, and the differentia being their distinguishing characteristics. For example, if a kid asks, "Mom, what's an apple? What's a banana? What's an orange? What's an avocado?" A pinup answer would be a definition saying, well, first of all, it's a fruit. Fruit would be the genus. They 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 are fruit. Avocado is a fruit. Right? Yeah, avocado is a fruit. Sorry. So the genus is fruit. So you identify the genus that locates the concept in the genus, the wider category, and that's epistemologically very important. And then you get into differentia. Uh, so an apple is a fruit that I'm going to mess up here. I can't on the fly come up with what an apple is, but it's. I'm not even going to try. But if you explain what an apple or an orange or a banana is, you say it's a fruit that, and then you identify one or more characteristics that distinguish the apple from the all other fruits. All right. So when you ask what is something, what is orientation, what is pleasure, what are thresholds, what's auto-organization, what is an apple, what's a car, what's a phone, what is positive reinforcement, what is negative reinforcement, I would like and epistemology demands a definition of what is the wider category, and then what are the differentia. And the standard explanation of positive negative reinforcement in organic intelligence does not offer that. It just says, well, positive reinforcement is feeling better by feeling better. Negative reinforcement is you have to feel worse before you feel better. That's helpful. That's important. I'm totally down with that. And I know I'm being very technical here, but it since it's such a foundational concept, it merits more attention to precise thinking and what is the genus, what is the differentia. Toward that end, my current thinking is, and it's still in progress, but the genus would be ways that pleasure are reinforced, ways that pleasure are reinforced in the biology, which is not even a concept, that's a sentence or a phrase, but getting to, in the genus work right now, it's how is pleasure reinforced in the biology, or how is feeling better reinforced in the biology or in your life. That would be the genus, or in process genus, but in the form of a phrase or question. And then positive reinforcement is we reinforce, we promote and reinforce feeling better by focusing on it only and autonomously without it needing to be hooked to pain. And then negative reinforcement would be we reinforce pleasure in the biology and in life in a way that, and you could add, unfortunately, in a parenthesis, in a way that hooks it to pain. I'm going to stop there, Rena. I have more, but I'm just going to stop there. I hope that wasn't too off-putting for people, but I'll just stop there. And then it's your go, and feel free to tackle anything I said or not. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple thoughts. Like, one, why is this important?
Yes.
And it's important not necessarily within organic intelligence, but it is important as a way of in contradistinction to other methodologies. So organic intelligence is a methodology for helping people, in general, feel better in life. I think we could probably expand the genus of that statement, but ultimately, organic intelligence is a methodology for helping people feel better in life. And there's lots of methodologies out there for helping people feel better in life. And organic intelligence is in contradistinction to those because of this emphasis on positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcement. So in many ways, I think that's kind of why we would even have this conversation, why that's important. Although once you're in organic intelligence and you're utilizing the methodology, it becomes less important, because other than to the effect of trying to shift people's, say, attention or behavior. But more than that, more specifically than that, getting to your problem of a lack of genus, I'm going to throw out a possibility and see what you think about that. Okay. So what I'm contemplating right now, just on the fly, because we have not had this conversation prior to this, is that the genus around positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement, and then you can throw in positive punishment and negative punishment, although we don't talk about that in organic intelligence. But these have to do with how to shape complex human behavior Although it doesn't, initially it was not about human behavior. It could be about animal behavior as well. So complex behavior shaping paradigm is what the genus possibly is. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that.
That's yes, thank you. First, can I compliment or can I offer support for what you said prior, which is why are we talking about positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement? Why is it important? And I think a point you made, I just want to repeat it because thought it was important. It's a primary importance is to distinguish organic intelligence from all or almost all other approaches, in that almost all other approaches cause pain intentionally, and then they say, well, you'll feel better by going through this pain. With organic intelligence, our focus is always, when possible, on feeling better by feeling better directly, not by causing pain first, to reinforce pleasure itself, not pleasure hooked to pain. So thank you for pointing that out. So a major importance of the concept is it distinguishes organic intelligence from almost all other approaches. And in the founding document, in the founding academic publication of organic intelligence that I co-wrote with Steve, I titled it, or I came up with the title, and he agreed: a non-directive positive reinforcement framework, for trauma and addiction. Yeah, so I did come up with that, even though I am scared of using the concept. Okay, so and then once you're within organic intelligence, if you bought the Kool-Aid, if you buy into what we're doing, and it's all pleasure, 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 orientation, 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 you don't have to worry so much about positive versus negative reinforcement, because it's already just assumed that we're going for pleasure whenever possible without creating pain first. Okay.
Right.
Thank you for that, Rena. Well, did you want to say something before
Well, and I was also going to say there's, just to give credit to a lot of other methodologies out there, is some of them are creating or causing pain first. So various methodologies out there that are, I know of different ones. It's like, yeah, and you can see them on TikTok and YouTube, and where people are writhing on the table and screaming, and and everything in the methodology is around supporting these high intense painful experiences. And so they will, yes, set things up and therefore cause them. But there's also lots of methodologies that aren't specifically intentionally causing that kind of feel worse first idea. It's just that they will have a tendency to allow it or to give further support to it. So when a client comes in and a person, you can say cause would be if the therapist says, what trauma do you want to work on today? Well, that's going to have a causatory influence in terms of an effect, in terms of guiding the conversation. But likewise, a client can come in and just because of their expectations of what therapy or coaching is, starts like launching into here's what my problem is. And then there can be a joining of that because of the therapist's own sense of what to pay attention to. There can be a joining of this and then a further accentuating of it and talking more about it. And so in that situation, the methodology in and of itself is not causing it, but it is adding support to it or allowing for it. And to me, that's also slight differentiation in terms of organic intelligence, because there is going to be, okay, if a client comes in, there's going to be an attunement to what the client comes in with, and there's not going to be a direct, hey, let's go deeper into this. So you're having a bad sensation, right? You can feel pounding in your chest. Let's spend time hanging out with pounding in the chest and feel pounding in the chest until it goes away. That just wouldn't be organic intelligence way. However, if somebody says, wow, I feel this pounding in the chest, and there's something about it that feels enlivening to me, then we'll go, okay, let's watch the pounding of the chest because it feels enlivening. And how is it that feels enlivening? So the same sensation can be treated differently depending on what the client is bringing in. Are they bringing it in from, hey, there's something that feels good about this, or they bring in there's something that feels bad about it. And in organic intelligence, yes, we're not going to follow the breadcrumb of feeling bad, and let's feel more bad, and then let's keep talking about how bad it feels, and then let's mentate, like let's have thoughts about how bad it is, and now you're crying or super angry, right? Like we're just not going to accelerate it or grow it or give energy to it so it expands. So I just wanted to give that little
Yeah.
distinction, in terms of what's out there, to give credit to, not all of it is intentionally causing these unpleasant kinds of experiences. So okay, so that was in response to that last comment you made. Do you want to say anything
I
about genus, or do you want to say anything
I feel
about
like what you just said right now is way more important than my I think my genus question is very, I think a lot of people are just not going to be interested in it. And I don't find, I think long term it's important for epistemological foundations for organic intelligence, but that's my own like caretaking role in organic intelligence, a very long term view about protecting its intellectual integrity. But as far as like helping people live better lives, maybe I'll get back to it, but we probably won't have time because you already raised issues that I want to talk about, which will take us, we never have enough time. My experience is I never have enough time to do what I want in these talks, even though it may not be your experience and it may not be other people's experience. Sorry. Okay. Um, I wanted to mention, so you said a lot. I want to talk about it. One thing for now. One thing first. Negative reinforcement can come in very subtle ways in ordinary life from people, and it's perceived as very normal and socially acceptable. For example, I was having coffee with a friend. Well, he's actually a psychologist, CBT oriented psychologist, and then I was talking about how there's something I wanted to do, but I hesitate. So I won't say what it is, but I was debating whether to do something. And he said, "What are your fears?" And from his perspective, that's a standard question in therapy, in CBT, and people would say that's very acceptable, good. Hey, nice. You're helping Bach explore. What are your fears? And he said it very calmly, innocently, productively from his perspective. And that was negative reinforcement. I actually had a shock because I'm so ingrained in positive reinforcement. It occurred to me like, whoa, I see how that question is very normal. You could write it in, if you're a TV writer, it would be a very normal thing to say, what are your fears? And people would maybe clap, oh, thank you for asking that. And let me explore my fears and get deep and cry. But it was negative reinforcement because it's priming what's unpleasant. And it may not be necessary for me to go through that, to be subjected to that pain for me to make progress in thinking about whether I'm going to do X or not. So negative reinforcement is everywhere. It's in the air. It's socially accepted. It's normal. It's the presumptive, like, I'm doing something good. I'm getting people to face their discomfort. What are your fears? And and we're against that because if it's possible to feel better or to make progress without feeling worse first, that is better. Okay. All right. You, in the content that you presented, if a person, okay, one thing I think you were saying is if someone comes to organic intelligence organic intelligence session, we're not going to be saying, what do you want to work on? What's holding you back? What are you afraid of? What causes you discomfort? Where's your pain? Where's your trauma? Where's your intensity? Where's your stress? So that we just don't do. We focus on pleasure now. And if we were to focus on where's your trauma, where's your pain, that would be negative reinforcement, and that's not organic intelligence. Now, if the person comes in with a bunch of negative stuff, I got a negative review from my boss, or I'm in the midst of a divorce, just a lot of intense negative stuff, and that's where they are, we will join them because that's where they are and support that process and look for whatever moments feel less bad. And that is working in positive reinforcement, even though the content is very negative, right? So it could be that the whole session is spent talking about what's bad and what's wrong. Like, my life is falling apart because my relationship is falling apart and my career is falling apart. And I just got diagnosed with Lyme. So it could be that the whole session is negative content, unfortunate content, but the approach is positive reinforcement, which is not, instead of talking about that, let's talk about happy things like your favorite food. That would not be positive reinforcement. That would be negative because you're causing pain by doing that abominable intervention. Let's talk about lasagna and butterflies instead of talking about your divorce. That would be causing pain. So that would not be positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement would look like talking about what they're talking about what interests them, and looking for what feels better. And in choice moments, we're not asking, what are your fears? In general, we're not asking that unless there's some intuitive sense that that would be something that could actually be pleasing or something. Okay. So was I getting you right in some of that? Or
Yeah, I think there's actually more nuance
more
to it
nuance?
than that. And in the sense that um, your distinction that the approach is a positive reinforcing approach, that is the preference for the work, and there's absolutely times that the work will be negative reinforcing because that's where the client is starting. So if the client is starting feeling worse already, and then according to what we've been talking about, they would be over their organic intensity threshold to begin with. If they're over their organic intensity threshold, anything that's over that threshold is by default going to result in negative reinforcement because, well, at the end of the session, even if just talking about this unpleasant thing helps them to feel better and feel, some relief or less stress about it, or they have some new insights, yes, they started out feeling bad and they came back down eventually. And to the degree that the system comes down, that's going to be negative reinforcing. In other words, that's going to reinforce that same behavior in the future, right? And organic intelligence has a preference for building conditions such that clients have the possibility of coming in with, hey, I'm okay with just chit-chatting to begin with. So we talk about that as a free association conversation, so that they disinhibit, and by disinhibiting, they're not so focused on their what's wrong, unpleasant, negatively reinforcing content. That there's a certain training that comes in where we become, as clients, more okay with that which is neutral or pleasant. But that's not where most people start with. And so a lot of our work is unpleasant, working in the unpleasant space. And so a lot of the work initially is negative reinforcement. If a person comes in having just had a car accident, right, or a close near miss to a car accident or something like that, and we're having a conversation about that, well, the system's jacked up. It's above the organic intensity threshold, because it's unpleasant. And so by the time they get to the end of the session, if they feel any better, that was negative reinforcement. So I think it's important to say that we're not like, trying to make negative reinforcement taboo. It's recognizing it happens. It's just not preferential. It's not going to, because negative reinforcement is a very powerful shaping behavior. It's a very powerful shaping of behavior, right? And so if you want more of that in life, well, we'll keep doing that, but that just keeps people stuck in the way they've been doing life, right? And so, yes. So if somebody comes and says, hey, I'm really hesitant about this decision, should I do this or do not do this? The question is not what do you fear? The question might be simply like, oh, tell me more.
Mm.
Right? Because there's an assumption that the hesitancy is because of fear. Well, it might not be because of fear. It might be because it's a rational thing to be hesitant about this decision, or cautious, or the decision could lead to positive outcomes or negative outcomes, and you have to think about those things. And so, in that kind of situation, we're not going to assume that it's fear or negative. That's what your friend did. We're going to assume that there's something valuable that's there, and we'll want to leave that open to explore that possibility. And so whether that's question, whether that's going to be positive reinforcing or negative reinforcing, depends on you and where you're starting when you say, I'm really hesitant about making a decision.
Thank you. I'm thinking there's a lot more to understanding positive and negative reinforcement that we could get into in the future. This is what you're saying is raising a lot of different questions in my mind that I think are important to ask, to talk about. Okay, yes, yeah. Organic intelligence does not. We're not saying we only work in positive reinforcement. It may be necessary to work in negative reinforcement where a person has to accelerate their painful intensity in order to reach some threshold, which would be over threshold. And for the new people to organic intelligence, I have not explained what organic intensity thresholds are, and I'm not going to do it in this amount of short time. So sorry, we're kind of pitched at a today's conversation is pitched more for people who know quite a bit about OI. Okay, so sometimes
and we have videos on that.
Yeah. I have, yeah, yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for saying that. Actually, it didn't occur to me to say that. We work in negative reinforcement when necessary. So when a person needs to their pain to increase in order to feel better, we will go with that and do that. At the same time, to the extent it's possible not to do that, then we go to positive reinforcement. And even when we're working in negative reinforcement, we're still working in a way that's fundamentally different, I think, from many other approaches. So if I have to usher someone's pain to a slightly more intense level, or even significantly more intense, it may be that I do it through image rather than sensation, or sensation rather than affect, or meaning rather than sensation, or I take more time when I say stuff so that they're forced to hear me, compared to a therapist who may have very terse commands. So there are, when you get into the nuances of OI work, even if we're working in negative reinforcement, we're still doing it through maximum possible ease the blow. Yeah. And then whenever possible, go with positive reinforcement. Another point I wanted to make from what you said was, you had mentioned, like, what if you just got into a car accident and you're jacked up on intensity, and then the coach has to usher up the intensity for way over threshold for deactivation. Yes, I think that in organic intelligence work, there's a fundamental distinction between acute situations and non-acute. So in this acute, like, I just got struck by lightning, I just got sexually assaulted, I just got into a car accident, that's more like, then the work would probably look more like other modalities where we're just, okay, let's go to the pain because it's there, it's fresh, it can be cycled through. But if we're talking about, you were not just in a car accident, you're just living with a bunch of symptoms from a zillion things across your lifetime, then that's in general when the work looks much more different from other approaches.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would even say that, coming in with a high intensity acute situation, it's also going to look different. Like there's still going to be ways in which we're looking for the value, the good, you're in a car accident and you're sitting here really concerned about your spouse in the front seat and your child in the back seat, and after the accident you're reassuring them that it's going to be okay, and it's like, and if that's part of the conversation, we're going to really support that as being part of the conversation, because that's the that which feels better in the whole situation, is the ability to be able to care for the people you love, and how significant that is, and to tap into that is going to significantly allow the whatever activation is there, whatever intensity is there, to come down much smoother, much more easily, and with a less, intensity in the whole coming down process. In other words, less shaking, crying, trembling, defensive motor responses, those kinds of things.
With only 1 minute left, and so we'll have to go at least a tiny bit over time, but with only 1 minute, I feel like I want to mention one point which I think is important enough to just sneak in there, or just hammer in, which is that positive reinforcement in the context of organic intelligence does not mean being positive. So this is a longer talk, but just for now, it doesn't mean only give compliments, don't give criticism. It doesn't mean talk about happy things, not sad things, or dark things. It does not mean that. It means we're trying to usher feeling better by feeling better. Talking about positive things and giving compliments and not criticism may actually put someone off. So so it's that would not be positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement does not mean being positive. And there are some intervention. I'll leave it there. There's so much more. I'll stop there. I'll stop there. Okay. Rena, final thoughts here on positive versus negative
Oh
reinforcement.
yeah, yes, I think the it can be challenging to think about really like positive and negative, and people have a lot of associations with those
Yeah.
words and what those mean, and we're trying to parse that out a little bit. And positive reinforcement has to do with the shaping of behavior and what allows that to happen. And negative reinforcement also shapes behavior. It just does it in a certain way. Um, Maybe I'll just what I just saw this morning. I'll make this as mention, and this has to do with some research, especially with children, and how to try to get children to learn a task takes, and I can't remember the exact number, but so I'm gonna make it up. It's a totally made up number, but it's gonna be close. It's like 1,000 repetitions. Right. So if you're trying to get a child to play the violin in a certain way, it will take 1,000 repetitions, unless that child is doing it through play. And so they've been able to show that when you're able to make something playful or pleasant, then it only takes like 10 repetitions. And there's a difference between how many repetitions are necessary based on whether it's playful, whether it has an ease to it. And that is an example of the difference between positive reinforcement versus, whether or not 1,000 reinforcements is negative or even neutral. There's something about that when things are done through play and ease and so forth, that learning is easier. And so maybe I'll just leave it kind of with that
Yeah.
idea.
You
That's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Why is positive reinforcement better? The answer you offer is it's faster, more productive, and more pleasurable.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. To learn more about either of us and the coaching we offer, there will be links in the description. To learn more about organic intelligence, you can read my writing on Substack, link in the description, and explore my video library on YouTube, including the short videos. I meticulously craft my Substack posts and YouTube videos to present substantive content that's direct, clear, and concise. Thank you, Rena, and I will see you next time for more.